Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. We do have some breaking news that we want to get to at this moment, and it comes to us from our nation's capital. I want to put up this live vantage point that we have there of the White House. This is big news as a U.S. federal judge ruled today that the Pentagon's deployment of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. is illegal. It was Judge Gia Cobb who ruled today that the National Guard's deployment was illegal, but stayed the effect of her order until December 11th. This will give the Trump administration time to ultimately appeal this, during which the National Guard will remain in D.C. And so what we do know is that we've heard from a few others. We have D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab releasing this following statement, saying, quote, "From the beginning, we made it clear that the U.S. military should not be policing American citizens on American soil. Normalizing the use of military troops for domestic law enforcement sets a dangerous precedent where the president can disregard states' independence and deploy troops wherever and whenever he wants with no check on his military power." And I want to put this up. This is that tweet that we have from the Associated Press making this announcement just a few minutes ago. We do know that statement continues on to say, D.C. Attorney General saying this unprecedented federal overreach is not normal or legal. It is long past time to let the National Guard go home to their everyday lives, their regular jobs, their families, and their children, end quote. And so just for a bit of backstory here, our partners at Fox 5, of course, they're in D.C., have been following this very closely. It was just last month that the Office of the Attorney General in D.C. opened that lawsuit against the federal government, saying that the deployment of the National Guard on the streets of D.C. was unlawful and that it was causing irreparable harm to the city. The National Guard deployment was expected to last potentially until next summer in 2026, when the nation celebrates its 250th anniversary. But the current deployment is supposed to end at the end of November, but military officials had told the out-of-state troops to prepare for the winter. The National Guard, though, was first deployed to D.C. back in August after President Trump declared a crime emergency in our nation's capital. The Guardsmen and women have been deputized as Special Deputy U.S. Marshals. The D.C. OAG says that federal law does prohibit the military from being involved in civilian law enforcement and calls the National Guard presence a threat in D.C. to public safety. And so putting that up on your screen as the judge has now ordered President Trump to end this National Guard deployment in D.C. I want to also show you this other vantage point that we have there of the city. But that's the biggest news breaking, that a U.S. federal judge officially ruling that the Pentagon's deployment of the National Guard is illegal. And ultimately what we will know is that as we continue to watch this and check in with our partners there at Fox 5 in D.C., that this order will be stayed until December 11th. This is going to give the President Trump's administration time to see if they can repeal this and fight back in court. So we'll continue to watch to see how all of this unfolds.